So, Tom, we've had lots of chats over the years, mostly at GAD conferences, but lots of things going on in the broader industry. But I just thought it'd be interesting to hear both what's happening in Edmonton. You're doing some pretty interesting things out there, and sort of your broader thoughts on airport development, private sector investment, and where you think you see things going. So let's start with Edmonton. What's happening in Edmonton?
Yeah, thanks. We've had a lot of activity in the recent years in Edmonton, particularly on the commercial side. We're blessed with 8,000 acres at the airport, which we've had since 1958, which, by the way, we bought, the government bought for $17 an acre, if you can imagine back then.
Yeah.
But having the largest landmass of any major airport in Canada is a big advantage for us. In the last 5 years, we've been doing a lot of commercial development. We've had almost $1 billion worth of private investment.
Oh, good.
Last year, we had at one point 1.6 million square feet under construction at the same time. So
is that mostly landside commercial, or
mostly landside commercial? A lot of logistics as well, though. So I'll give you an example. We opened a 100-store outlet mall.
Oh, great.
We opened a Costco. We opened the second largest horse track casino in Canada just a couple of weeks ago. We opened a very large medical marijuana facility. Actually, it's Aurora Cannabis, 800,000 square feet.
They say it's a good growth industry. So.
It's a growth industry, but a lot of medical marijuana shipped to 24 countries around the world. So we've got an agri-tech sector. We're growing. We've got a distillery that's opened. We've got 30 incubator companies that are on the airport now. We have an Alberta Aerospace Technology Center that we opened. And then on the logistics side, we've opened many buildings in the last 3 or 4 years, including a 210,000 square foot trucking facility. So lots on the go on the commercial development side. But also a lot on the go at the terminal, where we formed a digital division last year as well.
Oh, great. And your traffic's been growing?
Traffic's been growing. We had a bit of a dip in 2015 with the oil industry going down, but our economy's been diversified quite a bit since then, so we had a record year last year.
Okay, fantastic. And what's the total traffic now?
We're about 8.3 million passengers.
Oh, great. So it's... it's interesting because in Alberta, you've got the sort of downturn in the energy crisis or the energy prices, but as you said, the economy is a lot more resilient than people realize.
I think it's again, traffic. People need to travel to places to conduct business.
Exactly.
And Albertans are quite resilient as well, so they're used to the ups and downs with the oil industry, and a lot of the technology sector has really picked up. A lot of people don't know that Edmonton is the third best city for AI and machine learning.
Oh, really? I would have had no idea.
It's quite incredible. A couple other things people don't know about Edmonton, I'll just mention. First of all,
sorry, that's third in Canada?
No, third in the world.
Third in the world.
Wow. And in fact, we just got a San Francisco flight because of the connections between Silicon Valley and
fantastic.
Edmonton. So that sector is growing quite a bit. The Chinese, we have 400 Chinese professors in Edmonton. So
seriously, I would have had no idea.
We've got 16% of our population is from Asia.
Okay.
We have the youngest population of any city in Canada, and we also have the most affluent population in Canada on average. So
that's a pretty impressive workforce.
Yeah.
So the broader question is the sector, the private investment side of airports is growing, and this conference focuses on that private sector participation. Where do you see it moving in North America in the next 5 years? Because both Canada and the U.S. have been probably the least penetrated in terms of the development, but we still have needs, just like the rest of the world, to develop capacity and transfer risk and all those things. But what do you see as the trends going forward?
Well, on a general scale, I think Canada will probably accelerate in development of private sector involvement in the coming years. I know that if you think about our airport authority structure, we're a non-share capital corporation, but we're relatively independent in terms of we operate quite a bit like a private company.
Exactly.
We get no government funding, so we're, I think, more receptive to looking at potential private investment and win-win situations for our community. Often people ask what our roles are at airport, and in Canada anyway, after safety and security, our role is to create economic prosperity for our region in a fiscally responsible way.
Exactly.
So we'd be interested in, I know in Canada, if it's going to be private investment, what's that going to mean for the community? Are we going to grow jobs, or are we going to have more flights? But I think there's depends on the airport, but I think there's going to be a bit more openness to, from a government perspective, to look at this. It remains to be seen.
Well, there's a lot of different models out there, and I guess Canada's a bit unique with this not-for-profit model, and maybe in a minute we can talk about that, because not everybody's familiar with that not-for-profit. But the only one that I can really think of that's even close to that is that French regional model, where, for years, and I think it was almost 50 years, French regional airports were operated by the Chamber of Commerce, and we may find that odd, but that was quite normal in France. But they also found a mechanism and a win-win to be able to privatize or get private sector involvement in those airports through what I call the French regional solution, where the Chamber was simply an operator of the airport. They had no equity, but when the federal government of France wanted to do some private sector involvement in the airports, they gave those parties equity. So in most cases, the federal government retained 60%. They created a new company, and they put 40% to the people that helped them develop the airport, which was the Chamber and the local cities. It's not unlike the Canadian model, where you've got sort of the same players. But my thought was, is this not a possibility as a win-win, where the communities can have a stake in the game, or skin in the game, but it's a bit of a win-win. It may be one of those options, right?
Yeah, and I think I don't think it's going to be a cookie-cutter situation in Canada. To your point, I think there'll be all kinds of options that are more attractive for individual cities. Some if something were to change in terms of government regulation, in terms of privatization, some airports may opt to, hey, no, we're fine with the way things are going. Other airports might say, hey, why don't we look at part of our airport in that win-win situation that you're talking about. Others might look at a full-bore change. But again, it'll be, I think the lens will be the community. If people are interested in developing options, they should definitely filter it through what the communities around these larger airports think about airports. And I should say that in Canada anyway, our airports have a really positive reputation for the most part of the communities.
And I was going to say that's every one of these countries that looks at it, that their airport policy is looking at what are the drivers. Some are wanting to increase the capacity, the level of service. We don't really have those issues in Canada. The airports are by and large well managed, and that Transport Canada experiment 25 years ago has been quite successful. Airports have been improved, capacity has been expanded, airports are well managed. Even your cost of capital is fairly reasonable. I guess most airports in Canada are going through a bond sort of process, and it's reasonably cheap money.
Yes,
so
it is,
the question then becomes, what is the key motivator for the government? And in this case, I can really see where the federal government's saying, here's this very mature asset. The government really doesn't need to be coaxing the development of that sector. It needs, the scarce dollars of government need to be put into the areas like hospitals, roads, dams, energy generation that are maybe more risky and require government assistance to move forward. So I guess we'll see, that the infrastructure bank and all the things that was meant to do. It'll be interesting to see in the coming months. We have an election coming up in November, and I guess we'll see where the chips fall. But interesting time to be in airports, not just in Canada, but everywhere else in the world. So, which I guess is appropriate. We've got our globe here. So, thank you very much, Tom, for taking the time, and I'm sure we'll be doing this again.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Take care.